That October morning, the community center on 5th Street smelled of fresh paint and hope. Lauren Rhee arrived early, tying her dark hair back. As she surveyed the renovation project, 20 volunteers were expected that weekend to transform the aging building into a safe space for at-risk youth. At 34, Lauren carried herself with quiet grace. She'd aged out of foster care at 18, with nothing but a high school diploma and determination. Now, she worked as a graphic designer in a quiet city somewhere in the Midwest. She lived in a modest apartment and volunteered on weekends. It was a quiet life, a safe life. As the morning unfolded, Lauren discovered Mark was a financial analyst who'd grown up in Cherry Hills Village. Comfortable, privileged, but with self-deprecating humor about it. They painted the youth reading room in sage green. Talking easily, "You strike me as someone who appreciates authentic," Mark said, watching her work. Lauren felt something shift in her chest, like a door she'd kept locked for years, cracking open. "I do," she said quietly. Over sandwiches at lunch, Mark finally asked the question she'd been dreading. "So you really grew up without any family?" "Parents died when I was 4. Car accident. No other relatives. So, foster care." Mark's voice was gentle. "What if someone just wanted to be there with you? Not to save you, just to be there." Lauren's throat tightened. She'd spent years building walls. And here was this man she'd known for 5 hours, seeing right through them. "I guess that would depend on the someone." Mark smiled. "I'd really like to see you again after this weekend." Lauren knew she should be cautious. But when she looked at Mark Bennett, with paint in his hair and sincerity in his eyes, that locked door swung open wider. Okay. They went to Santiago's on Tuesday. An outdoor amphitheater concert on Friday. The local art museum the following week. Mark was attentive without being suffocating, genuinely interested in everything about her. One evening at the lakeside park, he stopped walking and turned to face her. "You see things differently than anyone I've ever met. Most people like me, who grew up comfortable, we sleepwalk through life. But you notice everything. You see people." Lauren felt tears prick her eyes. "When you grow up invisible, you learn to see other invisible people." Mark reached for her hand. "You're not invisible to me, Lauren. You're the most vivid person I've ever met." That night, he kissed her for the first time. The next 3 months blurred together in unexpected joy. Mark showed up for her consistently. When her car broke down, when she had migraines, with small surprises that showed he was paying attention. He introduced her to his world with patience and no condescension. On a snowy December night, they made love for the first time. Afterward, Mark traced patterns on her shoulder and whispered, "I'm falling in love with you." Lauren's heart felt too full. "I'm falling too. It scares me because I've never had anything this good. Which means I have something to lose." Mark pulled her closer. "You're not going to lose me, Lauren. I promise. I'm in this, all the way." And in that moment, Lauren believed him. "I want you to meet my family," Mark said one February morning over pancakes. Lauren's fork paused. She'd been expecting this, dreading it. "What have you told them about me?" Mark hesitated. "That you're amazing. That I've never felt this way about anyone. And that you grew up in foster care." "What did they say?" "It doesn't matter what they said. You're who I want." But the fact that he didn't answer told Lauren everything. The Bennett house in the upscale neighborhood was a sprawling colonial with manicured lawns. Mark's father Robert greeted them warmly. But Margaret Bennett stood in the foyer like a sentinel. Perfectly coiffed blonde hair, tailored dress, pearls at her throat. She looked Lauren up and down, with an assessing gaze usually reserved for livestock. "Lauren," she said, extending 2 fingers. "Mark has told us about you." The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Dinner was excruciating. Robert made genuine attempts at conversation. But Margaret dominated, with stories designed to emphasize the Bennet family's history and social standing. The Bennets have been in this state since territorial days. We take our family legacy quite seriously. She turned to Lauren with surgical precision. What do your parents do? My parents died when I was 4. I grew up in foster care. Margaret's lips pursed. I see. And do you have any siblings? Other family? No, ma'am. How unfortunate. And where did you attend university? I didn't. I went straight to work after high school. The silence was deafening. Well, Margaret said, dabbing her mouth with her napkin. I suppose not everyone is cut out for higher education. Though in this family, we do value academic achievement rather highly. Mark graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern. His father and I both attended Yale. Mom, that's enough, Mark said sharply. I'm simply getting to know her, Mark. When you bring someone into your life, you bring them into the entire family. We have standards to maintain. Lauren set down her fork carefully, hands trembling. Excuse me, I need the restroom. She made it to the powder room before tears came. Looking in the mirror at her borrowed dress and careful makeup, Lauren saw herself through Margaret Bennet's eyes. A nobody from nowhere, with no right to this world. A soft knock. Lauren? It's me. Mark pulled her into his arms. I'm so sorry. My mother was completely out of line. She's right though. I don't fit. Stop. Mark looked at her fiercely. You are the most incredible woman I've ever met. You've built a life from nothing. My mother is stuck in old ways of thinking. Lauren, I love you. I don't care if you grew up in a mansion or a foster home. You're who I want. Your family. You're my family now. I choose you. Despite everything. Lauren felt hope bloom. For the first time in her life, someone was choosing her. But Margaret's campaign had only begun. Over the following weeks, she called Mark daily with concerns. She sent articles about incompatible backgrounds. She invited Mark to family events. And forgot to invite Lauren. When Mark mentioned proposing, Margaret scheduled an emergency lunch. Afterward, Mark came to Lauren's apartment looking exhausted. My mother said she'd cut me out of my inheritance if I marry you. Lauren's blood ran cold. Mark, I told her to keep her money. His voice was fierce. I told her I make my own living. And I'll live my own life. Lauren, I'd give up everything for you. You're the only thing that matters. He kissed her deeply, and Lauren's doubts melted away. This was real. 3 weeks later, at the community center where they'd first met, Mark dropped to one knee, in front of the sage green reading room. They'd painted together. Lauren Rhee, I've never believed in love at first sight until I met you. You've shown me what it means to be brave, to be resilient. You've made me want to be a better man. I know my family doesn't understand yet, but a life with you is worth more than their approval. Will you marry me? Through tears, Lauren said yes. Margaret refused to attend their engagement parties. She sent Mark brochures for couples counseling and articles about divorce rates among mismatched couples. She used the phrase, breeding matters. Mark told Lauren one night, barely controlling his anger, like we're horses. Maybe we should wait. No, that's what she wants. For us to wait forever. We're getting married, Lauren. With or without her blessing. They chose a small ceremony, with friends and accepting relatives. Robert came, but Margaret stayed away, her absence a weapon. On a bright May afternoon, Lauren Rhee became Lauren Bennett. Mark cried during his vows, promising to stand by her always. As they danced their first dance, he whispered, "We did it. It's you and me now. Against the world if we have to." Against the world, Lauren echoed, believing that fairy tales could come true even for orphan girls. If only she'd known. The hardest part was yet to come. The man who fought so hard to marry her would prove far less willing to fight for their marriage. The fairy tale was about to become a nightmare, and the real test of her strength hadn't even begun. The first 6 months of marriage were a slow unraveling. It started small. Mark began working late more often. His phone was suddenly password protected. When Lauren asked about his day, his answers grew shorter, vaguer. Just work stuff. You wouldn't understand. The man who'd once listened to her for hours now seemed annoyed by her voice. Margaret called the house every day. Sometimes twice. Lauren would answer, and Margaret's tone would turn icy. Put my son on the phone. Mark would take the call in another room. Hushed conversations that ended with him looking tense and distant. One evening, Lauren tried to kiss him. He turned his head. I'm tired, Lauren. You're always tired lately. Maybe if you made things easier. Instead of always needing something. He stopped himself, but the words hung in the air like poison. Lauren felt something crack inside her chest. This wasn't the man who'd promised her forever. This wasn't the man who'd fought his family for her. By month 8, Margaret had started dropping by unannounced. She'd walk through their modest apartment, with barely concealed disdain, running her finger along surfaces, checking for dust. A wife should keep a proper home, Lauren. Especially when she doesn't work as many hours as my son does. Lauren bit her tongue. She'd learned that defending herself only made things worse. Margaret would sit at their small kitchen table, drinking tea Lauren had made, and talk to Mark as if Lauren wasn't there. You look tired, sweetheart. Is she not taking care of you? You know you can always come home. Your room is exactly as you left it. This apartment is so cramped. I don't know how you stand it. Mark never defended Lauren. He just sat there, nodding along. Mom's right, Lauren. The place could be cleaner. After Margaret left, Lauren would stand at the sink, hands shaking, washing dishes that were already clean. This was her life now, walking on eggshells in her own home. A year into the marriage, Lauren met Jessica, Mark's colleague from work. He'd mentioned her casually at first. Jessica's leading the new project. Really sharp. You'd like her. Then Jessica started appearing in more stories. Jessica and I grabbed lunch to discuss the presentation. Jessica thinks I should apply for the senior position. Jessica said the funniest thing today. Lauren felt jealousy twist in her stomach. But she pushed it down. She was being paranoid, wasn't she? One night, Mark came home at 11. His shirt was wrinkled. He smelled like perfume that wasn't hers. Where were you? Work dinner. I told you. You didn't tell me. Well, I'm telling you now. His voice had an edge she'd never heard before. Why are you interrogating me? You sound like my mother. I'm your wife, Mark. I'm supposed to know where you are. You're supposed to trust me. But his eyes wouldn't meet hers. Lauren's heart was pounding. Are you seeing her, Jessica? Mark's face went cold. You're being crazy. Am I? Because you smell like someone else's perfume. And you've been coming home late for weeks. The slap came so fast Lauren didn't see it coming. Her cheek burned. Tears sprang to her eyes. Mark stared at his own hand as if it belonged to someone else. For a moment, Lauren thought he might apologize. But then his jaw set. Look what you made me do. If you just stop nagging. He walked to the bedroom and closed the door. Lauren stood in the living room, hand pressed to her burning cheek, her whole body trembling. This was the man who'd promised to be her family. This was the man she'd trusted with her heart. She should have left then. But where would she go? She had no family, few friends. Mark had gradually isolated her from the ones she'd made. And part of her, the orphan girl who'd spent her whole life feeling unwanted, still believed she could fix this. Maybe if she tried harder. Maybe if she was a better wife. Maybe if she gave him a baby. Yes, a baby would change everything. Wouldn't it? Lauren threw herself into trying to conceive. She tracked her cycle obsessively. Bought ovulation tests. read every article about fertility. But Mark was rarely interested anymore. I'm tired, Lauren. Not tonight. Why are you so obsessed with this? When they were together in that way, it was mechanical. Empty. He'd finish and roll over without a word. Lauren would lie in the dark, tears sliding into her pillow, praying that this time it would work. Month after month, her period came. Month after month, the pregnancy test showed 1 line instead of 2. And month after month, Margaret's questions became more pointed. Any news yet? You know, Mark's cousin just announced her 2nd pregnancy. The Bennett line needs heirs, Lauren. That's what wives are for. Lauren wanted to scream that she was trying, that her body was betraying her just like everything else. But she just smiled tightly and said nothing. 18 months in, Mark stopped pretending. He'd come home smelling like Jessica's perfume. And not even try to hide it. He'd go out on weekends and refuse to say where. His phone would buzz with messages. He'd read with a small smile, then delete. And when Lauren confronted him, the violence came more easily now. A shove into the wall. A grip on her wrist that left bruises. Once, he threw a plate that shattered against the wall beside her head. If you'd given me a child by now, maybe I'd want to come home, he said coldly. But what's the point? You can't even do the one thing wives are supposed to do. Lauren flinched as if he'd struck her again. I'm trying. You're failing. Just like my mother said you would. Maybe she was right. Maybe you were never good enough for this family. Margaret's visits increased. Now she'd come over when Mark wasn't home. She'd sit in Lauren's living room like a queen holding court. You know he's seeing someone else, don't you? Lauren's hands clenched in her lap. I didn't raise my son to be unfaithful. But what choice does he have? A man needs a proper wife. A woman who can give him children. Who comes from a good family. Who knows how to behave in society. You've trapped him with your sad little orphan story. But he's realizing his mistake. If you had any decency, you'd let him go. Lauren's voice was barely a whisper. He married me. He said he loved me. Margaret's laugh was sharp and cruel. Love? Darling, love is for fairy tales. Marriage is about legacy, about family, about continuing the bloodline. And you can't do any of that. She stood, smoothing her skirt. My advice? Leave before he throws you out. At least you'd keep some dignity. After she left, Lauren sat on the couch for hours, staring at nothing, feeling nothing. She'd become a ghost in her own life. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night in November. Lauren had made dinner, Mark's favorite. She'd cleaned the apartment until it gleamed. She'd bought a new dress. She'd taken a pregnancy test that morning, knowing it would be negative, but hoping anyway. It was. Mark came home after 10. Reeking of alcohol and perfume. Where have you been? Out. I made dinner. It's cold now, but I can heat it up. I'm not hungry. Mark, please. Can we just talk? He turned on her, and she saw something dangerous in his eyes. Talk about what, Lauren? About how you failed at everything. About how I gave up my family for you. And you can't even give me a child? About how I come home to this pathetic apartment. And your sad face every single day? I'm trying. You're always trying. And you're always failing. He grabbed her arm. Hard. Lauren cried out. You know what Jessica said today? She said I deserve better. And she's right. At least she's a real woman. At least she could give me children. Something in Lauren's spine finally straightened. Through her tears, she found her voice. Then go be with her. Mark blinked, surprised. What? I said go be with her. If she's so perfect, if I'm such a failure, then leave. I want a divorce. For a moment, Mark looked almost uncertain. But then his face hardened into something ugly. Fine. You want out? You're out. He shoved her backward. She stumbled, catching herself on the wall. You think you'll be anything without me? You're nobody, Lauren. You've always been nobody. My mother was right about you from the beginning. You're nothing but a gold-digging orphan. Who thought she could marry up? He grabbed his keys. I'll have my lawyer contact you. And trust me, you won't get a penny. You brought nothing to this marriage. And you'll leave with nothing. The door slammed behind him. Lauren slid down the wall to the floor, her body shaking with sobs. 2 years. She'd endured 2 years of this, hoping it would get better, believing the man she'd married was still in there somewhere. But he was gone. Or maybe he'd never really existed at all. The next morning, Lauren woke up on the couch. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her arm was bruised where Mark had grabbed her. But for the first time in months, maybe years, she felt something other than despair. She felt anger. She'd survived foster care. She'd survived being alone her whole life. She'd survived losing everything before. She would survive this too. Lauren picked up her phone and called a divorce attorney. The divorce was quick and bitter. Mark's expensive lawyer, paid for by Margaret, of course, tried to paint Lauren as a gold digger who'd trapped their client, but Lauren had nothing to take. They'd kept their finances separate at Margaret's insistence. The apartment was in Mark's name. Their few possessions were mostly his. Lauren walked away with her clothes, her laptop, and her dignity. The day the divorce was finalized, Mark looked at her across the courtroom with something like contempt. You're nothing now, Lauren. You'll always be nothing. Lauren held his gaze steadily. At least I'll be free. She walked out of the courthouse into the cold winter air. Homeless, jobless, she'd had to quit when Mark's harassment at her workplace became unbearable. Alone again, but alive, and that was something. Mark told Lauren one night. 2 weeks later, Lauren felt nauseous. She'd been throwing up every morning. Probably stress, she thought. The divorce had been finalized a month ago. She was living in a women's shelter, trying to find work, trying to rebuild her life. Her body was just reacting to the trauma. But the nausea persisted. And her period. When was her last period? With trembling hands, Lauren bought a pregnancy test with the last of her money. She took it in the shelter's bathroom and watched as 2 lines appeared. Positive. Lauren stared at those 2 lines. After 2 years of trying, 2 years of hoping, 2 years of enduring abuse, because she thought a baby would fix everything. Now, when she was finally free. Now, when she had nothing. Now she was pregnant. She was pregnant, divorced, and alone. But Lauren Rhee had survived worse. And what she didn't know yet was that her real life, her real fairy tale was about to begin. 2 pink lines. Lauren stared at the pregnancy test in the shelter bathroom. Her hands were shaking. After 2 years of trying, 2 years of hoping, 2 years of enduring abuse, because she thought a baby would save her marriage. Now, when she was finally free, finally safe, finally divorced, now she was pregnant. She slid down the bathroom wall to the floor. And for the first time in months, she allowed herself to cry. Not from despair, but from the overwhelming weight of a question she didn't know how to answer. What was she going to do? The next morning, Lauren went to a free clinic. The ultrasound technician moved the wand across her belly, squinted at the screen, then smiled. Well, congratulations. You're having twins. Twins. Lauren's breath caught. The technician kept talking about dates and development. But Lauren couldn't hear her. Twins. 2 babies. 2 lives depending on her. And she had nothing. No home. No job. No family. She walked out of the clinic in a daze. Sat on a bench in the cold March air. Her hand moved to her stomach instinctively. 2 babies. Mark's babies. But also hers. That night in the shelter, Lauren lay in her narrow cot. Around her, other women slept. Some snoring, some crying quietly in the dark. She thought about her options. She could tell Mark. He was their father, after all. He had a right to know. But the thought of going back to him, of being trapped again, of subjecting her children to his violence. No, she could consider other options. The shelter counselor had gently mentioned them. But when Lauren closed her eyes, she saw two little faces. She'd wanted children for so long. Dreamed of a family. A real family, with love and safety and all the things she'd never had growing up. She couldn't give them a father who loved them. Couldn't give them grandparents who welcomed them. Couldn't give them the stable, happy home she'd always dreamed of. But she could give them herself. She could give them love. And maybe that would be enough. Lauren's hand rested on her belly. Okay, she whispered into the darkness. Okay, we'll figure this out, I promise. The pregnancy was hard. Carrying twins while living in a shelter. Working whatever jobs she could find. Waitressing, cleaning, data entry. Her body ached constantly. Her feet swelled. She was exhausted all the time. But Lauren pushed through. She had to. For them. At 5 months, a former colleague from her old design firm reached out. They needed someone to do freelance graphic design work. Remote, flexible hours. It wasn't much money, but it was something. Lauren said yes immediately. She worked on a borrowed laptop in the shelter's common room. Late at night, when it was quiet. Creating logos and layouts while her babies kicked inside her. Your mama's going to take care of you. She whispered to her belly. I don't know how yet, but I will. At 7 months, Lauren moved into a tiny studio apartment. It was in a rough neighborhood. The building was old, the walls were thin. And the heat barely worked. But it was hers. She bought a used crib from a thrift store. Painted it white herself, even though the fumes made her nauseous. Washed tiny clothes donated by a church. Folded them carefully, and stacked them in the single drawer she had. 2 of everything. 2 onesies. 2 blankets. 2 bottles. The reality of twins was starting to sink in. Double the joy, yes. But also double the work. Double the expense. Double the fear. Some nights, Lauren would wake up in a panic. How was she going to do this? How was she going to raise 2 babies alone? But then they would kick, a double flutter against her ribs. And she'd remember. She wasn't alone. Not anymore. Lauren gave birth on a snowy December morning. 36 weeks. The twins decided they were ready. The labor was long and difficult. No one held her hand. No one whispered encouragement. The nurses were kind but busy. Lauren gripped the bed rails and breathed through the pain alone. But when they placed her babies on her chest, a boy and a girl, tiny and red and perfect, Lauren forgot everything else. All the pain, all the fear, all the loneliness. She looked at her daughter's face and saw her own eyes looking back. Evelyn, she whispered, after the aunt who'd saved her father. The aunt she'd never known but whose memory suddenly felt important. And her son, with his father's coloring but, she hoped, her heart, Noah, a new beginning, a fresh start after the flood. Hi, Lauren said, tears streaming down her face. Hi, babies. I'm your mama, and I'm going to love you so much. I promise. The first month was a blur of sleepless nights and constant worry. Lauren worked whenever the babies slept, which wasn't often. They took turns crying, needing to be fed, needing to be changed, needing to be held. Lauren's world shrank to the size of her tiny apartment. Diapers and bottles and laundry. Freelance work done in stolen moments. Ramen noodles for dinner because formula was expensive. She was exhausted, overwhelmed, scared she wasn't enough. But when Evelyn smiled at her for the first time, when Noah wrapped his tiny hand around her finger, Lauren knew she'd made the right choice. She would walk through fire for these children. And she was doing it, one day at a time. On a Tuesday morning in March, when the twins were 3 months old, Lauren's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Ri, this is William Chen from Chen, Morrison and Associates. We're a law firm downtown. Lauren's heart dropped. Had Mark found her? Was this about child support? She couldn't handle a legal battle right now. I'm calling regarding the estate of Evelyn Ri. Lauren's breath caught. I'm sorry, who? Evelyn Ri. Your father's sister. Your aunt. Lauren sat down slowly, Noah asleep in her arms. My aunt? I didn't know she was still alive. I'm afraid she passed away 6 months ago. We've been trying to locate you. Her will named you as her sole beneficiary. The room seemed to tilt. I don't understand. I never knew her. We lost touch when I was a child. Nevertheless, Ms. Ri, she left her entire estate to you. We need to discuss the details. Would you be able to come to our office? Lauren arranged for a neighbor to watch the twins. She put on her best outfit, which wasn't saying much, and took the bus downtown to an address that made her stomach flip. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of place she'd never belonged. The receptionist directed her to the 20th floor, where William Chen, silver-haired, kind-eyed, impeccably dressed, welcomed her into a conference room with a view of the entire city. Thank you for coming, Ms. Ri. Please, sit. Lauren perched on the edge of the chair. Everything about this place screamed money. Power. A world she didn't belong to. I'll be direct, Mr. Chen said. Your aunt, Evelyn Ri, was a remarkable woman. She came to this country with nothing, and built a fortune through real estate investments and business ventures. She never married, never had children, but she never forgot her family. He slid a folder across the table. She left you everything, Ms. Ri. Her properties, her investments, her business interests. The estate is valued at approximately $847 million. The number hung in the air. Lauren couldn't breathe. I'm sorry, did you say million? Yes, but I don't understand. Why me? She never even met me. Mr. Chen's expression softened. Actually, she did. When you were very young. After your parents died, she tried to gain custody of you. But there were complications. Immigration status, mostly. She was devastated when the courts placed you in foster care. She tried for years to find you, to help you. But the system failed you both. By the time she located you again, you were an adult. She wanted to reach out, but her health was failing. So she did the only thing she could. She made sure you'd be taken care of. Lauren's hands were shaking. She knew about me? All this time? She followed your life as best she could. She was very proud of you, Ms. Ri, and she wanted to give you the security she never had. The security your father never got to provide. Tears spilled down Lauren's cheeks. All those years thinking she was completely alone. All those years in foster care, believing no one wanted her. And there had been someone. Someone who cared. Someone who never forgot. Lauren's voice broke. I don't know if I should accept this. Mr. Chen looked surprised. May I ask why? Because I didn't earn it. I didn't know her. It doesn't feel right to just take almost $1 billion from someone I never had a relationship with. Mr. Chen leaned back, studying her. Then he smiled slightly. Your aunt wrote you a letter. I think you should read it. He pulled an envelope from the folder. Lauren's hands trembled as she opened it. Dear Lauren, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you probably have questions. I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you when you needed family most. The system kept us apart, and by the time I could reach you again, I was too sick, too old, too much of a stranger. But I watched you from afar. I saw you survive things that would have broken most people. I saw you build a life from nothing, just like I did. You are my brother's daughter. You have his strength and his kindness. This money isn't charity. It's your birthright. It's what your father would have given you if he'd lived. Use it wisely. Use it to help others who grew up like we did. Alone and forgotten. Be the family for someone else that I couldn't be for you. With love, Aunt Evelyn. Lauren read the letter 3 times. Her tears fell onto the paper, smudging the ink. She knew, Lauren whispered. She knew I was alone and she tried. Mr. Chen nodded gently. So the question isn't whether you deserve this, Ms. Ri. The question is what will you do with it? Lauren looked out the window at the city below. At all those people living their lives. Some struggling like she had been. Some alone like she had been. She thought about the shelter where she'd given birth. About the single mothers she'd met there. Women with no resources, no support, no hope. She thought about her aunt's letter. Be the family for someone else that I couldn't be for you. I want to accept it, Lauren said, her voice steady now. And I want to use it to help people. Single mothers. Women who are alone and scared. I want to create something that gives them hope. Mr. Chen's smile was warm. I think your aunt would be very pleased. Now, let's discuss the details. And Ms. Ri, welcome to your new life. Over the next 2 years, Lauren's world transformed. She moved to a beautiful home in a quiet neighborhood. Not a mansion. She didn't need that, but a real house with a yard where Evelyn and Noah could play. She hired a nanny to help with the twins. A kind woman named Rosa, who treated them like her own grandchildren. And she started her dream project. The Evelyn Ri Foundation. A gallery and community center dedicated to supporting single mothers through art programs, job training, and financial assistance. It was everything Lauren had wished existed when she was struggling. A place where women could bring their children, learn new skills, create beauty even in hardship, find community, find hope. The gallery featured works by single mothers. Lauren used her design skills to help them showcase their art, to tell their stories, to prove that being alone didn't mean being broken. Local media started covering the foundation's work. Stories about Lauren's own journey from foster care to philanthropy. About the gallery changing lives. About a woman who'd survived abuse and poverty and was now helping others do the same. Lauren didn't seek the attention, but she welcomed it if it meant more people would be helped. Evelyn and Noah turned 6 on a December morning. Lauren made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. They wore matching birthday crowns. Noah wanted a superhero party. Evelyn wanted a princess party. So Lauren gave them both. Superheroes and princesses together in the gallery's event space. 20 children running around laughing. Parents, mostly single mothers from the foundation, chatting and relaxing. It was chaos. It was perfect. Lauren watched her children blow out their candles. Evelyn with her serious dark eyes. Noah with his infectious laugh. They were everything. Her whole world. And they were happy. Safe. Loved. That was all that mattered. The article appeared in the regional newspaper's weekend edition. From foster care to philanthropy. Lauren Ri's inspiring journey. It featured photos of the gallery. Of Lauren with the twins. Of single mothers whose lives had been changed. The article was honest about Lauren's past. Her time in foster care. Her brief marriage. Her struggle as a single mother. And it detailed her incredible transformation. After inheriting her aunt's fortune. The article went viral online. Shared thousands of times. Featured on local news broadcasts. Lauren became, overnight, a minor celebrity. An inspiration. A success story. She didn't love the attention. But if it brought more support to the foundation, she could handle it. What she didn't know was who else was reading those articles. Who else was seeing her success. And who was about to come back into her life. Mark Bennett stared at his laptop screen. The article had been shared by one of his old college friends. Local philanthropist's inspiring journey. From foster care to fortune. There she was. Lauren, his ex-wife. standing in front of a beautiful art gallery. Smiling, looking successful, looking happy, and beside her, 2 children, twins, a boy and a girl, about 6 years old. Mark's hands gripped the edge of his desk. 6 years old. He did the math in his head. They would have been conceived right before, or right after, the divorce. His children, they had to be. Mark's current life was a disaster. His second marriage had lasted 18 months before Jessica left him. Turned out she didn't like being hit any more than Lauren had. His business ventures kept failing. He'd burned through most of his savings. His mother still supported him financially. But even Margaret's patience was wearing thin. "You need to get your life together, Mark," she'd said at their last lunch. "You're 42 years old and you have nothing to show for it." Nothing to show for it. But now he had children. Children he didn't know about. Children with a mother who was apparently worth nearly $1 billion. Mark picked up his phone. Called his mother. "Mom, you need to see something." Margaret Bennett arrived at Mark's apartment within the hour. She stood in his messy living room, scrolling through the article on her phone. Her face was unreadable. "Twins," she said finally. "Yes. Your children? The timing fits. They'd be mine." Margaret's eyes gleamed with something cold and calculating. "She kept them from you. She hid your children and took them away from their family. From their heritage." Mark nodded eagerly. Finally, his mother understood. "We have rights," Margaret continued. "Those children are Bennett's. They deserve to know their father, their grandmother. And frankly, Mark, you deserve to share in that fortune. You're their father." Child support works both ways. Mark hadn't thought of that. But his mother was right. If those were his kids, and they had to be, he had rights. Parental rights. Financial rights. "What do we do?" he asked. Margaret's smile was sharp. "We remind Lauren Rhee that she can't erase us, no matter how much money she has." Lauren was in the gallery office when Rosa called. "Miss Lauren, there's a man here. He says he needs to see you. Says it's important." Lauren's stomach dropped. Something in Rosa's voice told her everything. "I'll be right there." She walked to the gallery's main floor. And there he was. Mark, standing in her gallery. Older, harder around the edges. But still him. The man who'd promised to love her forever. The man who'd nearly destroyed her. "Lauren." His voice was falsely warm. "You look amazing." Lauren's voice was ice. "What do you want, Mark? Is that any way to greet your ex-husband?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I saw the article. Very impressive. You've done well for yourself. I asked what you want." Mark's smile faded. "I want to meet my children." The words hung in the air like a weapon. "Your children? The twins. They're mine, aren't they? The timing fits." Lauren's heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. "You have no children, Mark. You signed away any rights when you walked out. I didn't know they existed." His voice rose, and several gallery visitors turned to look. "You kept them from me. I kept them safe. From their father? That's parental alienation, Lauren. That's illegal." Before Lauren could respond, another voice cut through the gallery. "Mr. Bennett, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Daniel Carter. Lauren's lawyer had been meeting with her about foundation business. He stepped between Lauren and Mark. His presence calm but authoritative. "Who the hell are you?" Mark demanded. "Daniel Carter, Ms. Rhee's attorney." Daniel handed Mark a business card. "Any further communication needs to go through me." Mark looked at the card. Then at Daniel. Then at Lauren. "This isn't over," Mark said. "Those are my kids. And I'm going to prove it." He turned and walked out. Lauren's legs felt weak. Daniel guided her gently to a chair. "Breathe," he said quietly. "Just breathe." 3 days later, Lauren received formal legal papers. Mark was filing for a paternity test and parental rights. claiming Lauren had deliberately concealed his children from him, seeking joint custody and child support. Lauren sat in Daniel's office, the papers in her trembling hands. Can he do this? Daniel's expression was serious but kind. He can file. Whether he'll succeed is another matter. Walk me through the timeline. When did you discover you were pregnant? 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized. And did you attempt to contact him? Lauren shook her head. He told me I was nothing. That I'd ruined his life. He was violent, Daniel. For 2 years. I wouldn't bring children into that. Daniel made notes. Do you have documentation of the abuse? Some. Medical records from when he shoved me and I hit the wall. Photos of bruises I took but never showed anyone. The shelter where I stayed after the divorce. Good. That's good. Daniel looked up at her. Lauren, I need you to understand something. This is going to be hard. He's going to try to paint you as vindictive, as someone who kept his children from him out of spite. But the truth is on your side. You were escaping an abuser. You were protecting your children. Any judge will see that. Lauren wanted to believe him. What about Margaret, his mother? As if on cue, Daniel's phone buzzed, with an email from opposing counsel. He read it, his jaw tightening. Margaret Bennett has filed to join the suit. She's seeking grandparents' rights. Lauren felt the walls closing in. She told me I'd never be good enough for her family. She said I wasn't fit to carry the Bennett name. And now she wants rights to my children? Daniel's voice was firm. She's not going to get them. I promise you that. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 weeks later. Margaret appeared at Lauren's house twice before then. Each time, Lauren's security turned her away. But Margaret's lawyer kept filing motions, demanding DNA tests, demanding temporary visitation, claiming the children were being alienated from their heritage. Daniel fought every motion, and slowly, Lauren began to see him not just as her lawyer, but as something more. He showed up, every meeting, prepared and professional, every panicked phone call, patient and reassuring. Every moment she felt like breaking. Strong enough for both of them. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of depositions, Daniel drove Lauren home. They sat in his car outside her house. The twins were visible through the window, playing with Rosa. They're beautiful, Daniel said quietly. They are. Lauren's voice was thick. I can't lose them, Daniel. You won't. But what if the judge? Lauren. Daniel turned to face her. Look at me. She did. His eyes were steady, warm, and certain. You are an incredible mother. You've given those children everything. Safety, love, stability. Mark Bennett has given them nothing. Margaret Bennett has given them nothing. The law recognizes that. I won't let them take your children. Lauren felt tears slip down her cheeks. Why are you doing this? It's my job. No, it's more than that. You care. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then, very gently, he reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek. Yes, he said simply. I care. The air between them shifted. Neither of them moved, but something had changed. Daniel, after this is over, he said quickly. After the case is done and there's no conflict of interest, I'd like to take you to dinner. If you'd want that. Lauren's heart felt too full. I'd want that. Daniel smiled. A real smile, soft and genuine. Then we have something to look forward to. The hearing arrived. Mark's lawyer painted a picture of a devoted father who'd been denied his children. Margaret testified about the importance of family heritage, about how the children deserved to know their legacy. It was almost convincing. Almost. But then Daniel stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence the medical records from Lauren Rhee's treatment for injuries sustained during her marriage to Mark Bennett. Photos appeared on the screen. Bruises on Lauren's arms. A police report from a neighbor who'd called about shouting. Shelter intake forms. Mark's lawyer objected loudly. but the judge overruled him. I'd also like to submit Mr. Bennett's signed divorce decree, Daniel continued, which clearly shows he made no inquiry about children. No attempt at contact for 6 years. No child support. No birthday cards. No phone calls. Nothing. Daniel turned to face Mark directly. Mr. Bennett, did you pay child support during the 6 years? You didn't know about your children? I didn't know they existed. That's not what I asked. Did you attempt to find out if your ex-wife might be pregnant when you divorced? No, but did you attempt any contact with Ms. Rhee after the divorce? No. Did you send any money? Why would I? Indeed. Daniel's voice was quiet but devastating. Why would you? Unless, of course, you discovered she had nearly $1 billion. Mark's lawyer shot to his feet. Objection. Speculation. But the damage was done. The judge's expression said everything. Then it was Margaret's turn. Daniel pulled out old emails. Messages Margaret had sent to Mark during the marriage. She'll never be good enough for this family. You need to get rid of her. She's not one of us. Daniel read them aloud, then turned to Margaret. Mrs. Bennett, you fought against this marriage from the beginning, correct? Margaret lifted her chin. I had concerns about compatibility. You called Lauren Rhee a gold-digging orphan, did you not? I may have expressed yes or no, Mrs. Bennett. Yes. You told your son to leave her because she couldn't have children? Margaret's composure cracked slightly. I believed you said, and I quote, she can't even do the one thing wives are for. Yes or no? Yes. And now, Mrs. Bennett, you want grandparents' rights to those same children you once claimed didn't exist? Margaret's face was red. They're my grandchildren. They're my blood. They were your blood when you told your son his wife was worthless for not producing them. They were your blood when you encouraged his abuse. They were your blood when you celebrated the divorce. Daniel's voice was steel. You don't get to decide they matter. Now that there's money involved. The courtroom was silent. The judge took less than an hour to decide. I've reviewed the evidence, she said. And I find that Mr. Bennett's claim lacks merit. The evidence shows a clear pattern of abuse, of abandonment, of complete disinterest in his ex-wife's well-being, or any potential children. Ms. Rhee had every reason to believe that informing Mr. Bennett of her pregnancy would endanger herself and her children. Therefore, I'm denying the petition for paternity testing and parental rights. Mark's face went white. Furthermore, the judge continued, Mrs. Bennett's petition for grandparents' rights is denied. The record clearly shows that she actively encouraged the abuse of Ms. Rhee, that she showed no interest in these children until their mother came into money. This court will not reward that behavior. Margaret stood up, outraged. Your Honor, those children need to know their family. Their family, the judge said coolly, is their mother, who has loved them, protected them, and raised them alone. Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Bennett, you are both ordered to cease all contact with Ms. Rhee and her children. Any violation will result in a restraining order. This case is dismissed. The gavel fell. Outside the courthouse, Lauren stood in the sunshine. Daniel beside her. It's over, she whispered. It's over. Daniel smiled. You were incredible in there. No, you were incredible. Lauren turned to him. This man who'd fought for her. Who'd seen her at her lowest and never judged. Who'd protected her children like they were his own. Thank you, she said. For everything. You don't have to thank me, Lauren. I do. She stepped closer. You gave me back my life. You already had your life. Daniel's voice was soft. I just made sure no one could take it away. They stood there, the spring sun warm on their faces. So, Lauren said, about that dinner. Daniel's smile was everything. How about tonight? The restaurant was quiet and elegant. Soft lighting. A corner table with a view of the city lights. Daniel had chosen well. Lauren sat across from him, wearing a simple blue dress. No borrowed clothes this time. No pretending to be someone she wasn't. Just herself. And that was enough. "You look beautiful," Daniel said. Not as a line, but as a simple truth. "Thank you." Lauren smiled. "And thank you for everything you did. For us. It was my privilege." Daniel's hand rested on the table between them. After a moment, Lauren reached out. Their fingers intertwined. It felt natural. "Right. Tell me something," Daniel said. "What do you want? For your future?" Lauren thought about it. 6 months ago, she would have said safety. Stability. To be left alone. But now, "I want what I have," she said honestly. "My children. My work. And maybe," she looked at him, "maybe someone to share it with." Daniel's thumb traced circles on her hand. "I'd like to be that someone. If you'll have me." Lauren's eyes filled with tears. Happy tears this time. "I'd like that too." Over dinner, they talked. Really talked. About Lauren's childhood in foster care. About Daniel's own past. A divorce 5 years ago. No children. A workaholic phase he regretted. About dreams and fears and what it meant to start over. "I was married once," Daniel said. "For 7 years. We were comfortable, but not happy. She wanted someone who worked less. I wanted someone who understood why the work mattered. In the end, we wanted different lives." "I'm sorry," Lauren said. "Don't be. It taught me what I really need." "Which is?" Daniel looked at her directly. "Someone real. Someone who's survived and come through stronger. Someone who knows what matters." His words hung in the air. "I see you, Lauren. Not your money. Not your success. I see the woman who chose to protect her children over everything else. The woman who turned pain into purpose. That's who I'm falling for." Lauren's breath caught. "Falling?" "Yes." Daniel smiled. "Is that okay?" "Yes," Lauren whispered. "Because I think I'm falling too." 3 weeks later, Daniel came to Sunday dinner at Lauren's house. The twins had been curious about Mama's friend. Lauren had been nervous. But she needn't have been. Noah took to Daniel immediately. Showing him his toy cars. His drawings. His collection of rocks from the backyard. Daniel sat on the floor with him, genuinely interested. Asking questions. Listening. Evelyn was more cautious. She watched from across the room, assessing. Finally, she approached with a book. "Will you read to me?" It was a test. Lauren knew it. Daniel seemed to know it too. "I'd love to," he said simply. Evelyn climbed onto the couch beside him. Not on his lap, not yet. But close enough. Daniel read with different voices for each character. Made Evelyn giggle. By the end of the story, she'd moved closer. Her head resting against his arm. Lauren watched from the kitchen doorway. Her heart full. This was what she'd dreamed of. A man who loved her. Who loved her children. Not because he had to. But because he chose to. But that night, after Daniel left and the twins were in bed, Lauren sat alone in the dark. Her joy was complicated by something else. Guilt. She'd won in court. Protected her children from Mark's manipulation. From Margaret's toxicity. But had she also taken something from them? The right to know their father? Mark had been terrible to her. Abusive. Cruel. But did that mean he could never be anything to his children? Lauren thought about her own childhood. About growing up without parents. About the hole that left. And she wondered, had she done the same thing to Noah and Evelyn? The next morning, Lauren called William Chen, her lawyer and trusted advisor. "I need Mark's contact information," she said. There was a pause. "Lauren, the court order." "I know. But I'm the one who can choose to reach out. I can choose to let them meet. Are you sure about this?" Lauren looked at the twins eating breakfast. Evelyn's serious face. Noah's bright laugh. "No," she said honestly. "But I think it's right." They met at a neutral location. A small park on a Tuesday afternoon. Lauren brought the twins. Rosa came too, staying close but giving space. Mark arrived alone. He looked different, smaller somehow, the arrogance gone. He saw the children and stopped walking. Just stood there, staring. Noah was playing on the swings. Evelyn was drawing with chalk on the pathway. Mark's face crumpled. "They're beautiful," he said, his voice breaking. Lauren's grip tightened on her coffee cup. "Yes, they are. They're 6? Yes. I missed everything." It wasn't a question, just a realization. Their first steps, first words, first day of school. Yes. Mark looked at her then. Really looked at her. "I'm sorry, Lauren." The words came out raw. Honest. "I'm sorry for everything I did to you. The hitting, the cruelty, the way I made you feel small. You deserved so much better. And they," his voice broke again, gesturing to the twins. "They deserved a father who showed up, who protected their mother instead of hurting her." Lauren felt tears on her cheeks but didn't wipe them away. "Why are you here, Mark? Not the court thing. Not the money. Why are you really here?" Mark was quiet for a long moment. "Because I saw them in that courtroom. And I saw what I'd thrown away. Not the money. Not even you, though God knows I threw that away too. But the chance to be a father. To be someone they could be proud of." He sat down on the bench, defeated. "My second marriage ended the same way as our first. I hit her. She left, just like you did. And I finally had to face it. The problem wasn't you, wasn't her. It was me. I'm in therapy now. Anger management. It's hard, admitting what I am, what I did." Lauren sat down beside him. Not close, but listening. "I don't expect forgiveness," Mark continued. "And I'm not asking for custody or visitation or any of that. The judge was right. I have no right to them. But I wanted to say I'm sorry. To you. And to them. Even if they never know who I am. I wanted you to know that you were right to leave. Right to protect them from me. And that I hope," his voice cracked, "I hope whoever you're with now treats you the way I should have." Lauren was quiet. Then, "His name is Daniel." "And yes, he does." Mark nodded, wiping his eyes. "Good. That's good." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the twins play, unaware of the complicated man on the bench. "Can I ask you something?" Lauren said finally. "Anything, if I let you meet them. Just meet them, nothing more. Would you be kind?" Mark looked at her, surprised. "You'd do that?" "I don't know yet. Maybe not now. Maybe not for years. But someday, if you're really different. If you've really changed. They deserve to know where they come from. Even if it's complicated." Mark's face crumpled again. Fresh tears. "I don't deserve that chance." "No," Lauren agreed. "You don't, but maybe they deserve it." She stood up. "Keep going to therapy, Mark. Keep working on yourself. Not for me. Not even for them. For you. Because you can't be a father to anyone. Until you figure out how to be a decent human being." Mark nodded, unable to speak. Lauren walked toward the playground. Then stopped and turned back. "I forgive you, Mark." His head snapped up. "Not because you deserve it. But because I deserve peace. I deserve to stop carrying your cruelty around. So I'm letting it go. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean letting you hurt us again. It just means I'm free." She walked away. Mark sat on that bench long after she left, watching his children play. Children who didn't know him, might never know him, and understanding, finally, that this was the consequence of his choices. This was what he'd earned. 6 months later, the gallery was hosting its annual fundraiser. The space was full of people, art, music, and light. Lauren moved through the crowd, greeting donors, thanking volunteers. She wore a green dress that Daniel had said brought out her eyes. He was across the room, talking to a group of potential foundation sponsors. Even from a distance, she felt his presence. Steady, safe, home, Rosa was with the twins in the children's activity room. They'd started calling Daniel, Danny. He'd cried the first time Noah had grabbed his hand and said, "Come on, Danny." Last month, Daniel had asked Lauren to move in with him. She'd said she needed to think about it. Not because she didn't want to, but because she wanted to be sure. For herself, for her children. Tonight, watching him laugh with Evelyn earlier. Watching him help Noah with his jacket. Watching him look at her across the room with such love. She was sure. Lauren stepped up to the microphone for her speech. The room quieted. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began. 5 years ago, I was living in a shelter. Pregnant, alone, and terrified. I had no family, no resources, and no idea how I'd survive. The room was completely silent now. Today, I stand here because of an aunt I barely knew, who gave me the resources to rebuild. But more than that, I stand here because of every person who showed me kindness when I had nothing to give back. The nurse who held my hand during labor. The neighbor who watched my babies so I could work. The shelter counselor who told me I was stronger than I knew. Lauren's eyes found Daniel's. And the people who showed up when I needed them most. Who fought for me. Who believed in me. Who reminded me that family isn't just blood. It's the people who choose to stay. This foundation exists because I know what it's like to be alone. To feel like you don't matter. To think you'll never be enough. But I also know what it's like to discover your own strength. To build something from nothing. To create the family you never had. Every woman who walks through these doors is told, "You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not your circumstances. You are capable of more than you know. And we're here to prove it." The room erupted in applause. But Lauren was only looking at one person. Daniel, who was looking back at her like she was everything. Later, after the guests had left, and the twins were asleep at home with Rosa, Lauren and Daniel stood alone in the empty gallery. "You were amazing tonight," Daniel said. "I meant every word. I know you did." He pulled her close. "That's why I love you." The words hung in the air. The first time either of them had said it out loud. "I love you too," Lauren whispered. Daniel kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. "Move in with me," he said again. "You and the twins. Let's be a family. Not because we have to, but because we choose to." Lauren smiled. "Yes, yes, yes. We'll move in with you. We'll be a family. We already are." 1 year later, Lauren stood in her backyard. The new house she shared with Daniel. Bigger than her old place. With room for everyone. The twins were running through the sprinkler. Screaming with joy. Daniel was manning the grill. Rosa was setting out plates. Lauren's foundation board members, women who'd become friends, were laughing around the patio table. This was her life now. Full, loud, messy, perfect. Noah ran up, dripping wet. "Mama, watch me do a cartwheel." He attempted one. Fell in a giggling heap. "Beautiful," Lauren called. Evelyn was more cautious. She walked over to Daniel. "Danny, can you help me with the sprinkler?" "Of course, sweetheart." He set down his spatula and followed her. Lauren watched them together. Her daughter who'd been so cautious about letting people in. Now trusting. Laughing. Safe. Daniel caught Lauren's eye over Evelyn's head. Smiled. Mouthed, "I love you." She mouthed back, "I love you too." That night, after everyone had gone home, and the twins were in bed, Lauren and Daniel sat on their back porch. The summer air was warm. Fireflies danced in the darkness. "Happy?" Daniel asked. "So happy." Lauren leaned against him. "Sometimes I can't believe this is my life." "Believe it. You built this. We built this." "Yeah." Daniel kissed the top of her head. "We did." They sat in comfortable silence. Then Lauren said quietly, "I got a letter from Mark last week." Daniel tensed slightly but didn't pull away. "What did it say?" "That he's been sober for a year. That he's still in therapy. That he doesn't expect anything. But he wanted me to know he's trying to be better. How do you feel about that? Lauren thought about it. I hope he makes it, she said honestly. Not for me, not even for the kids. But because everyone deserves a chance to heal. Even people who've hurt us. You're a better person than me, Daniel said. No, I'm just someone who knows what it's like to need grace. Lauren looked up at the stars. Maybe someday, when the twins are older. If they want to meet him and he's proven himself. Maybe, but that's their choice. When they're ready. Not his, not mine. Theirs. Daniel pulled her closer. You're an amazing mother. And an amazing woman. And I'm the luckiest man alive. Inside, Evelyn woke from a dream. She padded out to the porch. Mama? Lauren turned. Hey, baby. What's wrong? Nothing. I just wanted to make sure you were here. Lauren's heart squeezed. She understood that fear. The fear that good things disappear. That people leave. I'm here, sweetheart. Always. Evelyn climbed onto Lauren's lap. Too big for it, really. But Lauren held her anyway. Daniel reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind Evelyn's ear. We're both here, Evie, he said gently. And we're not going anywhere. Evelyn nodded, satisfied. Within minutes, she was asleep again. Lauren sat holding her daughter. Daniel's arm around them both. A family. Not the one she'd imagined. Not the traditional fairy tale. But something better. Something real. Something chosen. Years from now, people would ask Lauren about her success. About how she built a fortune. How she created a foundation that changed lives. How she found love after loss. And she would tell them the truth. I survived. I chose myself when no one else would. I protected my children above everything. And I learned that family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up, who stays, who chooses you every single day. Lauren Rhee had started with nothing. Lost everything. And built a life more beautiful than any fairy tale. Not because she was rescued. But because she rescued herself. And then opened her arms wide enough to let others in. That was the real magic. Not the money. Not the success. But the courage to keep believing in love. Even after it had broken her. Even after she'd had every reason to give up. She'd chosen hope. And hope had chosen her back. Thank you for listening to Lauren's story. Her journey reminds us that no matter where we start, we all have the power to rebuild. To choose ourselves. To create the family and life we deserve. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, and let me know where you're listening from. Are you in New York? California? Somewhere across the ocean? And if Lauren's story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. We share tales of resilience, hope, and the courage to start over. Stories that remind us we're not alone. Until next time, remember, you are stronger than you know. Your story matters, and it's never too late to choose happiness. Take care, and I'll see you in the next story.